This album's a lot more experimental in that I did try to broaden the textures that I was using. I wanted to make the album more multi-dimensional, and I wanted the listener to be able to sort of travel into the mixes. I think every time I go into the studio, I grow a little bit more, I learn more, particularly on this album because I put together a studio that was a full-blown professional studio. But not only that, it was the first time I'd actually recorded where my bass playing cut with a drummer and a guitar player was the basis for the track. While I was working on this record, Mitchell Froom was kind of looming around the studio, and he's such a great producer, and I have such admiration for him. And he came in one day and said, "You know what your strong suit is that you're a record maker." And I loved that because in a weird way I could embrace that, and it sort of empowered me a little bit while making this record. While I do really love writing songs, and I love touring, and I make records so that I can go tour, the whole record making process for me is really inspiring. My favorite mistake is about reflecting on your relationships, particularly the ones that you know weren't good for you, and still having fondness about those relationships. Generally, you have one or two in your life you can look at and think, I knew it was not meant to be, but I would do it again. And that's basically what the song is about. Actually, you know what? My favorite mistake is either about Warren Beatty or Mick Jagger. Entitling my albums, what I like to do is put a big piece of paper on the wall, and anyone who wants to throw in a possible title may do so. And by the end of the album, I had nothing but absurd titles for this album. One of the favorite ones was Theorythly. Theryouthly. And in the end, I chose the Globe Sessions because where most of the inspiration and most of the creativity happened on this record was at my studio, which is called Globe. It doesn't paint the mood, it doesn't give you a preconceived notion. It merely states a time and a place, and that felt correct to me. The song River Wide is probably the song that I'm most proud of and that I'm sort of most perplexed by. It's a lyric that I am not really sure where it came from, and I'm not exactly sure what it means, and I keep continuing to listen to it, and I keep finding new meaning in it. And it was one of those songs that kind of wrote itself in about 10 minutes and was recorded in about a half hour and then put away. It was a whole, complete thought when it came out, and those songs are so far and few between that you have to sort of treat them with wonder. I think that wherever you record, if you're open to it, that the influences, the energies, the inspirations of that location can really surface on a record. The same held true for recording in New York, and that it was right in the center of a very frenetic place. If you walk out into it, it can be great fodder. All those influences added to the tone of the record. When I got ready to make this record, I had had about 4 or 5 years of pretty steadily being on the road. And that unreality can become a reality. You just allow yourself to make traveling and never being in the same place become your home. And I realized I didn't have a place to live, I didn't have any relationships, and I felt like I was starting all over. And it took me a while to sort of reacclimate myself and to try to incorporate some balance into my life. I think that's why the record feels much more personal. It just was time for those things to be examined.
Drinking beer at noon. me about the album. Is it, after you had finished it, is it exactly what you was hoping for? What you were hoping for?
That's a good question. I think when you go in and you start making a record, you don't know exactly what you're going to come out with. And in this situation, I knew when I went in I wanted to make an album that was broader than my last record, that was more sort of cinematic and had more depth as far as the different textures. So in that way, I think it is close to what I wanted to achieve. But it's definitely a different album than I thought I was going to make, in that all the lyrics are really personal and it's very first person instead of narrative, which is what I usually do. So in that sense, I guess it's not at all what I thought I was going to be achieving, I guess. But I'm happy with it.
I think it's very special that you produced it yourself, the whole album. Was it the first time that you did a whole album yourself?
No, I did my last album, but this one was a little different because, you know, as you grow as a producer, as you grow as a songwriter, as you grow as a musician, obviously you along the way hit walls, and then you break the walls down, and then you hit more walls. And I knew there were certain things I wanted to experiment with, like string arrangements and sort of different ways of using technology and incorporating that with organic instruments. So. You know, I'm still learning as a young producer how to make things sonically work together. So it was a more challenging record than my last record, because my last record was just like, put it together, you know?
Yeah. But why do you want to do the producing yourself? Because there are a lot of great producers out there. Is it something, because it's your own work, you write your own lyrics, you do a lot
I like
of your
working
own
with me
instruments.
best.
Oh, really?
No, I'm kidding.
Why is that?
I'm kidding. You know, I actually wound up producing my last album because at the last minute my producer went home, I guess for personal reasons, and I've always demoed my own stuff, and so I thought, well, I'll just go in and I'll approach making this record like recording my own songs, and because I play, I have that advantage. And it just wasn't that much of a departure from making my demos, except that I really had to commit to committing, you know, these renditions of these songs to posterity. And on this album, I went in already with the mindset I'm going to produce this record, and was really thinking in those terms. So, you know, the hardest thing about being your own producer is knowing when you're finished, and also putting the album together, which songs to use. So it's a lot of decision making.
Yeah, but I think the fulfilling is even bigger at the end.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you know, I guess like anything, there's so much of you wrapped up in a record that sometimes it's hard to listen to it without seeing your own little flaws and stuff. But being a musician, I guess, really facilitates the process of producing, because you approach things from a musical standpoint, and then you make your decisions based on that, I guess.
Do you think it's, do you experience it, that it's difficult if you put so much of yourself into an album, that if you hear it over and over again, you see your own problems and own mistakes, and is it difficult to handle your own life on an album?
Well, I mean, I think albums are really just sort of like little snapshots or of where you are at the time, or like an entry into a journal. It's like a page in your diary, and you just, you know, when you're finished with it, you put it away. And for me, the further away I get from albums, the more enjoyable they are for me to listen to. Like my last album, I actually really enjoy listening to now, but when I finished it, originally I couldn't listen to it at all, because I could only really hear the things that I was on the fence about. So this album I'm actually sort of enjoying already, which is either a good sign or a really terrible sign.
But a diary is something for yourself.
Yeah.
And this is something for, well, everyone who wants to buy it or wants to hear it. You can get it.
Yeah, except for I still think that one, I think it's still for me. I mean, I'm willing to put it out there.
You understand most of it, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to create what you feel like is representative of you, and then not be nervous about putting it out for people to sort of determine who you are by that. But you know, I guess that's where the courage comes in, the daringness to just put it out there and let people make it their own.
You play a lot of your own instruments also on the album, but you also, well, not use, but let you help by some other great artists.
I used them.
Yeah, you used them for your album. No, I'm just kidding. But what I was noticing when I'm listening to the album, I thought it sounds, just some songs sounds Well, like Sheryl Crow, but with a jacket from the Stones on it. Do you know what I mean? And that's good. Well, I think, at least I think it's good. And then I read in your inlay that Bobby Keys did the saxophone, and he also played for the Stones. Has it something to do with it, or do you admire the Stones? Do you know them very well and you like their music, or was it not on purpose that it sounds a little bit like it?
Not really on purpose, but you know, I think when you go in and you make your records, you can't really deny your influences, and I'm really proud of my influences, so I certainly don't try to bury them. I never set out to make a record that sounds like a Stones record because it's already been done, obviously. And also the other thing is, to make a Stones record, you really need Keith Richards and Charlie Watts, and it's impossible to reproduce that. But I think if you go in and you're open to letting your influences hang out on whatever you're recording, then they're going to be obvious influences that you identify with and that people recognize. And like I said, I'm really proud of my influences. I don't particularly want to make those records again. But in the case with Bobby, I had this track that kind of reminded me of a song out of the '80s, like a Bowie song, or like the Stones during that Miss You period, kind of street feeling, just a little bit kitschy, you know, kind of tongue-in-cheek. And I decided a sax would be great on it, and I went up calling Bobby because I know him. And that song didn't really sound so much like a Stones song until he started playing on it, and then all of a sudden it sounded like a real Stones song.
Then it felt right. Okay. Something totally different. One of your favorite video clips is from Garbage.
Yeah, I guess we were here about a month ago doing some press in London and in Paris, and it was the first time I'd seen that video, and I just think it's so great. I think she's really hot, and it's fun to see a woman out there who's not associated with the whole female rock scene. She just has her own sort of, her own dimension and her own personality, and she really holds her own. And I particularly like that video for, not only for the way she looks and for the song, but also the special effects on it I think are really interesting.
talking about the 11 tracks on the album, because I thought, is there a hidden 12th track, or what is the 12th track? There are 2 songs on the 11th track. Okay.
Hey! Actually, there is a hidden track on here.
There is?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yes, there is a hidden track.
Okay, tell me about that one.
It's after the last song in here. It's like about 30 seconds into it, and it's kind of my reaction to what's been going on politically in the United States. And I wrote the song actually well before the whole Clinton investigation, as far as Monica Lewinsky goes. I wrote it before that, and just watching that whole thing unfold has been really enlightening. And this song sort of wound up being strangely prophetic in a weird way. But it's just really about being fed up with the amount of propaganda that we're fed, and the amount of mud that we're dragged through politically, and how when we elect these people, we elect them and immediately start sort of scrutinizing their personal lives and who they are. And it's just really about that. I think a lot of people are really fed up with what's going on politically in America. And
do you think it's politically, or do you think it's what Clinton did?
Oh, I certainly think he was in the wrong. I just think the song actually was a reaction to the investigations that were going on before that with Whitewater and with Travelgate and some of these other things. And it just seemed like every time you turned around, he was being investigated for something which was spending taxpayers' dollars. And I'm really pretty well versed in the whole Whitewater thing because I grew up right around Arkansas. And I think even when it comes to campaign funding and stuff, these are things that people have done throughout the ages. And while the sex scandal is really unfortunate, I mean,
no, but I
if
think it's
Kennedy
important to
were
know.
investigated, you know, if Thomas Jefferson were investigated,
That's
you know.
why I think it's so important to know that it's not about that, and it's something totally different, because everybody is, well, I think a little bit over-exaggerating about a sex scandal. I mean, they all did it.
Well, the lying thing is a problem, although I think it's, you know, you're talking about a really involved subject when you're talking about adultery, because I think most people who get into an adulterous situation feel forced to lie about it, and you know, I think it just got out of control.
So it's the lying part, actually.
Well, I think that's what they're going to eventually try to impeach him over.
Okay, back to the album, because that's the most important thing today.
Actually, the most important thing today is whether Clinton gets impeached.
Is it today?
No.
Okay, tell me about Mississippi, because I listened to it yesterday, because it was just out yesterday for me, and I thought that was a great song.
Well, thank you. I wish I would have written it.
That's the thing. How
Yeah.
did you get in contact with Bob Dylan? Or because it was a song he originally wrote for his own latest song of an album, but he didn't use it. So
Yeah.
how did you get in contact with him or with the song?
Well, actually, the album was already mixed and pretty much in the can, and we'd set a release date, and all the artwork was being prepared, and his publishing manager called me, the guy who handles his whole catalog, and said that Bob has this song and he wants to know if you'd be interested in hearing it. And he recorded it for his last album and wasn't pleased with his version, and thought you might want to take a peek at it. And you know, it's one that no one's ever heard. And when I heard it, I felt like it was classic Bob Dylan. Obviously, it sounds like something that could have been on Highway 61 or Free Will and Bob Dylan. But not only that, I was really touched that he even thought about me for that. So I went back into the studio and recorded it and mixed it and held the release date and in order to put the song on. But it's just, you know, it's great. It's nice to have a song on there that's really, I mean, not that my songs aren't masterful, but you're talking about like one of the great teachers as far as songwriting goes and poetry of all time. So
it must be a great honor to someone.
It's really fun. I mean, I'm still sort of giddy over the fact that he even really thought about me for that. It's very rare. He's only really done that a few times, and I'm really pleased about it.
Great. The first single release of the album is My Favorite Mistake. What is your favorite mistake?
What is my favorite mistake? Well, actually, it's more about who's my favorite mistake, which there isn't really one specific person. It's really about looking back on relationships that you've had, and there are certain relationships that you'll look at and think, well, that was a mistake, but I probably would do it again. And that's really what it's about. You know, it's hopefully looking back with a certain amount of fondness and even a little bit of yearning.
Mm-hmm. Is there a favorite song on the album for you? Without choosing Mississippi, because that's not one of your own. But.
Probably River Wide, I think, because I think for me that's the most strangely personal, in that it's a song that's not really typical of how I write, and those songs that write themselves top to bottom are so rare, you know, the ones that you don't really have to labor over, and I'm still sort of digesting the lyric, and you know, it's sort of informing me every time I play it and sing it, and that's really what keeps songs alive, I think, for artists, are the songs that you still are digging deep into the meaning of them, and you're not exactly sure where the lyric came from.
Okay, great. We're going to watch another video clip that you like. It's Marilyn Manson.
Yeah, I like them. I mean, for me, there's kind of a drought right now musically, particularly in America, and I just think, you know, they're interesting. They don't seem to take themselves too seriously. Obviously, it's reminiscent of Bowie, but that's great with me because I liked watching all of the periods of Bowie sort of recreating himself, and I think the song is really cool, and I really like the video. I watched the MTV Awards and felt like they were by far the most interesting and probably the best. They came off the best of anything that was on the show. So.
Okay, let's watch it. It's a quite bizarre video.
Yeah, it is.
But I like it as well. Marilyn Manson. I had this album, and I was looking inside because I always want to know what artists did themselves and who helps them, and well, just all about the album. And I noticed that there were no lyrics in there. Is that on purpose, or do you think, well, you can hear what I sing, so why do you need the lyrics?
Well, yeah, it was sort of intentional. I think a lot of my favorite albums when I was growing up, they never put the lyrics in the album jackets, and I think in a certain way you have to really dig into the music, and I think sometimes lyrics have more meaning and more power when you hear them over a melody, and it creates a different visual for you. And I feel like when people sit down and read lyrics, sometimes it can deflate the power of your initial instinct about a lyric. And I just wanted on this record to let people kind of dig into the music and the lyrics together, like I did when I was a kid, and would sit in my bedroom and with headphones on and really be into every track and into how just inspired by the whole picture as opposed to reading a lyric. You
have to play it backwards and write it down.
Yeah,
I did it like that,
yeah. I mean, you write them in your school notebook,
and then you never forget them.
Yeah, and also, I think you make them your own when you're sort of figuring out what every lyric means, and sometimes you surprise yourself. You're surprised by what the lyric is actually. So it's more
your
fun.
own meaning with every shot. Yeah, that's true. Can you help me with some other things? Am I Getting Through is another song, but there's a part 1 and a part 2. What does it mean?
Well, there's just sort of a little coda on the end of this huge, sort of melodramatic, overwrought piece of music, and it actually really happened that way, and that we have been playing that song, and after we put this, well, not even after we put the strings on, after we tracked it, we just kind of went into this really fast groove thing, and to me it was kind of a comic relief at the end of this very dramatic statement about fighting with the world, trying to keep your identity, and then it just kind of goes into this skippy, funny song.
And do you really think it's a self-portrait? Because in your biography they write down that this song is like a self-portrait. Do you feel it like that?
That is not correct. I don't know who wrote my bio, but that is not correct.
You're
no,
fired.
it's definitely not. I mean, I don't think I think every song has probably glimpses of who you are, but that song isn't a self-portrait verbatim. I think it's sort of a reaction to a lot of things about my life, having to live my life in the public eye and having everything I do sort of be up for scrutiny. But more than that, I think it's, believe it or not, I actually wrote it after the MTV Awards a year ago. And I had a very definite reaction to having gone to the MTV Awards. For one thing, I'm not like the young kid. I'm not in like the Jewel, Fiona, Wallflower sort of sect, and I go to those things and I find myself really sort of fighting with who I am and who I want to be and how I want to portray myself, and you get into this room full of this bizarre, sort of strangely competitive and overt, showy attitudes and stuff, and it's very hard to sort of hold on to yourself. And I watched other people, get up on stage and really lose themselves, people that I know, get up on the mic in front of cameras and act really silly and stupid and say dumb things that I know they were sorry about, and you can't get it back, and then for the next few weeks you're ripped apart and criticized for that strange, nervous energy that you let explode just because of the situation, and it's a lot to sort of handle, particularly as a young artist. It's a lot to handle,
But can you remain to be the same?
Well, that's sort of the question, I mean, that's really what the song's about. It's sort of about battling with who you think you are and who you want to be, and then who you wind up being, and, that sort of struggle.
Are you in balance now with yourself? Do you think that you find?
Well, I mean, it's an ongoing process. Just because you go out and you go to the MTV Awards and it's like, wow, that was so weird, and I feel really gross today, doesn't mean that you're changed as a person. All it means really is that people are going to perceive you as being one thing, and maybe that's not really exactly how you are,
Well, it don't change you, but I think it's a process that gets starting there.
I think no matter what field you're in, whether you're whether you're fighting your way to the top of a company or whether you're an artist and you're trying to figure out some way to express yourself, I think that is the life process of trying to figure out what your identity is and then trying to live that out. And I think that's the human condition, that's the struggle, you know, of trying to maintain that clear picture of who you are as a person and trying to stick with that.
Do you think that, I don't know if it's possible, but if anybody out there doesn't know Sheryl Crow and they buy this album, do you think they fit in right away with your feeling, with your music expressions?
I don't know, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to say, you know. I think you, like a while ago, you seemed really shocked that I like Marilyn Manson, and I think I would be really shocked if I found out somebody Marilyn Manson liked my music. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to say, but I think the themes on this record are much more sort of universal than I have been writing, and I think the songs are much more personal, and because of that, I think people are more apt to sort of find themselves in those songs. I know as a person who loves music that the songs that are written from the first person are the ones that I feel I make my own more commonly, you know. So I think, I don't know, it'd be hard to say. I hope I don't lose people on this album.
Oh no, that wasn't what I was.
Well, you know, I mean, that's
Yeah.
what you do. You know, you lose fans and then you gain other fans, and you know, people kind of check in and out of what you're doing. So,
But I think if someone buys this album the first time, it's the first Sheryl Crow album, I think they will recognize you, even though it sounds maybe different and you put other things in it, but it sounds like Sheryl Crow. I mean, no doubt about it. You hear that it's Sheryl Crow.
Right.
So I think that's a good thing to do in every album.
Yeah.
Your last video clip that you have chosen is Radiohead. Yeah, okay. I thought it was funny because Radiohead, Marilyn Manson, Garbage, they're all different, of course, but the music style is pretty much in the same direction. I mean, it's not a jungle version of something. It's not a house. It's not jazzy. It's almost in the same direction. Is it something that you always liked? Or are you open to other styles of music, or is it?
Oh yeah, I'm open to a lot of different, tons of different kinds of music. I mean, I like everything from old country music like Hank Williams to Bowie to certainly the Stones, Dylan. I mean, I'm not too terribly snobby about what I like. I really like things that musicians, artists who are trying to be innovative, and I think Radiohead is a really good example of that. You know, I think PJ Harvey is the most amazing example of somebody who creates music that is not necessarily recognizable, and it's really difficult as an artist to create something that no one's ever heard before. I mean, it's like Michael Jackson doing the moonwalk. The first time you hear it or the first time you see him doing that or whatever, you have to respect that, because to have your mind go to a place that no one has ever even thought about is really, I mean, I find it very difficult. I mean, on my record, there's very little in there that a musician can't understand, but I listen to a lot of Garbage, and I think I can't even understand how they did some of it. I mean, while it's not what I do, and it's not even really what I want to do, I have to respect the fact that they're doing something that's really innovative and different.
So you're really open-minded about other...
Well, I hope I'm open-minded about it. I mean, there are definitely things in music that I don't like, so...
Of course, but that isn't strange at all, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to watch Karma Police from the Radiohead, and we come back after the mistake, because it was the first release of this album. Do you already know the second release?
I think it's going to be There Goes the Neighborhood.
Yeah?
In Europe. I don't know what it's going to be in the States, but I think that's what it is over here.
Is it really about your neighborhood, where your studio is?
Yeah, it's definitely inspired by that. It's inspired by that whole sort of scene and that whole kind of eclectic group of personalities that used to hang out in that area, or that do hang out in that area. Right where my studio is in New York City is sort of like transvestite central, and then you've also got like Hell's Angels and lots of clubs, and it's right in the middle of this sort of abandoned meatpacking district. It's very, very strange and kind of fun and exciting, you know.
Yeah.
If you walk out into the middle of it and just sort of let it wash over you, then it's great fodder for lyric writing.
Yeah, you can even get inspired by the neighborhood, so that's great. Well, thank you for coming over, and well, thank you for producing and making this album.
Oh, well, thanks.
And I hope to see you soon again, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sheryl Crow.
I woke up and called this morning. The tone of your voice was a warning that you don't care for me anymore. I made up the bed we sleep in. I looked at the clock when you're creeping. It's 6 a.m. and I'm alone. Did you know when you go, it's the perfect ending to the bad day? I was just beginning. When you go, all I know is you're my favorite mistake. Your friends are sorry for me. They watch you pretend to adore me. But I'm no fool to this game. Now here comes your secret lover. Should be unlike any other. Until your guilt goes up in flames. Did you know when you go, it's the perfect ending to the bad day I'd gotten used to spending? When you go, all I know is you're my favorite mistake. You're my favorite mistake. Well, maybe nothing lasts forever, even when you stay together. I need forever after, but it's your laughter won't let me go, so I'm holding on this way. Did you know, could you tell you were the only one that I ever loved? Not everything's so wrong. Did you see me walking by? Did it ever make you cry? You're my favorite mistake. You're my favorite mistake. You're my favorite mistake. It's laughter that I hear when I close my eyes.
This is the Music Factory.